Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Sayed Atif Ali, and I'm a Program Manager CSR at Dubai Chamber. Before we start, just a little bit of housekeeping. By default, all the webinar attendees are on mute. However, if you have any question, then please submit anytime using the question box in your Zoom panel. And please kindly mention the name of the speakers to whom you would like to ask the question. And all the questions will be answered during the Q&A session if the time permits. If you have any queries, then please write them down in the general comments in the comments box. My colleague, Dr. Sangeeta Sharma is there. She'll be answering your queries. And after the event gets over, we will be sending you a post-event feedback form, and we would appreciate if you can provide us with your valuable feedback. For the participants who are attending the Dubai Chamber Center for Responsible Business event for the very first time, you can see that we offer a range of programs on CSR and sustainability. If you're interested to join any of these programs, please contact us. You can also visit our website and you can get more information. We have a lot of free to download guidebooks, case studies, toolkits are there. And as well as if you like to become a member of any of these programs, please contact us and we'll provide you more information. So today's webinar is part of the deliverables of our road safety task force, which is a part of the Dubai Chamber Sustainability Network. We launched this task force in year 2014. So this is quite a long journey. And so far we have been quite successful in promoting road safety practices within the UAE business community. In 2021, in the beginning of 2021, actually, we conducted a road safety webinar which focused on drivers' behaviors. And this particular subject, which we are going to talk about today, advanced technologies, was also suggested by the task force members. As you can see that we have around 27 task force members. So these are the leading companies in our network who chose to become the member of the Dubai Chamber Sustainability Network Road Safety Task Force. So, and we have a lead company, TriStar. From the beginning, they're the lead company. And we are honored to have two launch partners, Road and Transport Authority, RTA, and RoadSafetyUAE.com, which you are all aware of. So we are very thankful to our members and partners for their ongoing support for this task force. So why the task force have picked this particular subject? As we all know that each year, millions of people die because of road traffic accidents. And it's a normal practice that normally a human error is often blamed for the majority of the road accidents. However, the research suggests that road safety is the result of a number of other factors as well, like including external environment, vehicle performance, and etc. So what we are going to discuss it today, that how the advanced technologies can help to prevent road accidents. And we have either used those advanced technologies or we have heard about them, like gadgets, sensors, and most recently like artificial intelligence, applications, different technologies available in the market, which have proven to be very successful in containing the number of accidents. So today we are going to talk about not only about the opportunities these new technologies they offer, but also that what are the challenges and limitations these technologies they have. So it will be like a discussion, and as well as we have speakers who are going to talk about their experience and their products. So it's a very good, I think, learning for all of us. So today I will show you the list of speakers, and we have really high profile speakers. They're expert in their field, and we are going to, we are really thankful to them that they will spare their time for this webinar. So it will be really, I'm very excited actually to hear from these speakers, and I'm sure that all of us would learn a lot. At the end, before I move on to the speakers and agenda, I would like to give a big thanks to Road Safety UAE, Mr. Thomas, and Mr. Sridhar from TriStar for their immense support for this webinar. I think without their support, this webinar was not possible. So thank you so much for their support. So you can see these are our speakers. I think they're all wonderful speakers and they are expert in their field. So the flow of this webinar looks like this. So the first presentation will be from Mr. Steve Burnell, and then we have Mr. William Frank Newman, Mr. Naveen Sook, Mr. Ian Littlefeed, Mr. Shazeb Memon, and we'll be finishing the presentation around 12:20, and then we'll have some time for Q&A, where we will be answering your questions, and then hopefully by 12:45 we'll be finishing this session. All right, so our first speaker, Mr. Steve Burnell, I think he doesn't need much of the introduction. He's quite a familiar face in the public transport sector in the UAE. He has over 20 years of experience, and before joining STS Group, he has served in leading organizations in the UAE. So he's been very, very kind to us all the time. Whenever we have requested him to speak, he has always accepted our invitation. So today, Steve will talk about that how STS groups have introduced and implemented cutting-edge technologies within their operations. So floor is yours, Steve. If you please kindly share your screen.
Thank you very much, Saeed, Dr. Sangeeta, and everybody. Welcome this morning. I always get slightly embarrassed with the introductions that are made. I'm just going through the process of
I think I didn't do the justice.
You haven't given me permission to
okay.
Share for the moment. Okay. Okay, right. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. I'd also like to say thank you very much to TriStar and Thomas Edelman, Road Safety UAE, who we are a strategic partner with and work very closely, certainly with any communications that may go out to the RTA or other regulatory authorities. And Thomas supports us very much with the press and articles that we may write with regards to public transportation, safety, driver management, etc. And it's a very important partnership that we have with him because it allows us that platform to put across very important messages to the public in general. So as I've been introduced, I have the fantastic job of heading up STS Group. Many of you will know that our core service offering is school transport services, but that also includes a number of other companies that we've now amalgamated and consolidated into one group of companies. So that would include Bright Bus Transport that operates in the Northern Emirates and Abu Dhabi, Securitech Services, which is around our security devices systems that we manage ourselves, and also our auto repairing services that provide the maintenance support for our vehicles. So we have full responsibility from start to finish of everything that we provide out in the public sector. Sorry, the private sector as well. So just give you a short overview. So we have a fleet of just over 3,000 vehicles. Under normal circumstances, non-COVID, and certainly including the fantastic students that we cater to across 82 schools across the UAE, that normally amounts to around 82,000 passengers per day. We've been extremely busy in the corporate sector as a result of social distancing and the requirement for more vehicles to ensure that we can carry employees to work in a safe environment across a lot of areas. And that just gives you some idea of how broad across the UAE we operate in 445 different areas every day. And it's a lot of routes, it's a lot of kilometres. It's around 1/3 of a million kilometres a day that we operate. I think I'd like to, just before we go into the technology piece, just really reinforce that, you know, technology for us is pretty futile unless we have the right culture in the business. So for the last few years, we've been working very closely with our employees. And the majority of them are drivers that are here providing an excellent service for our customers that we employ. So we've been working a lot around mindset change and getting the culture right in the business, because if the safety culture doesn't exist, then the investment that we make is great for monitoring, but it doesn't really allow us to improve and step forward. And as we all know, we've heard the words that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So our strategy has been around building our technology in order for us to improve and optimize and become more efficient and provide safer services, because roads at different times of the year have different levels of risks, and we need to make sure that we can manage those risks accordingly. Ultimately, the emotional intelligence that is held within our employee workforce ensures that we provide the right level of safeguarding for our employees that then channels through to our passengers, the majority of them being students that we take extreme responsibility, regardless of where we are operating and when we're operating. You know, they are the most important passengers that we have on a day-to-day basis. Adults are a little bit more aware of the safety surroundings, so we do an extreme amount of work, certainly in schools as well, with our smart safety bus, on doing the extended classroom, because we know that safety isn't part of the curriculum in schools. So therefore we have that responsibility to ensure that we try and embed that safety culture within students as they grow up, and certainly becoming more exposed to public transportation as they grow older, so making them aware of those risks. So just moving on to some of the technology that we use. And I think I said at the beginning that one of our companies is Security Tech Services. So we don't outsource any of our responsibility, whether it's our maintenance through preventative and corrective maintenance. So we're licensed in the various Emirates. We source our own equipment, we install our own equipment, we maintain, and that allows us to be efficient, certainly from a price perspective, but it also allows us to react quicker, because we cross-train our technicians to ensure that they know how to work on the systems that we have, in addition to the vehicles for the maintenance requirements. So we have a very small team in our technical team here based at head office that look after the IVMS, the in-vehicle management systems, and also the software requirements. And a lot of that is fed through our operational control center. So when I use the acronym OCC, you know that I'm talking about Operational Control Center, and that is a team of very experienced individuals that monitor and react to our fleet management, certainly with regards to the technology systems that we have on vehicles, to ensure that we can react to any alerts or any events that would occur during a day. And that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our data is managed through secure data centers. We are very, very robust when it comes to sharing of data. And obviously, I'm sure you'll understand that when there is an incident on the vehicle, particularly where students are involved, that we have the right levels of data access for the right people to ensure that they understand that we're doing our job right, whether that's through the local police force, whether it's through the education regulator, or whether it's with the corporate company that we're working with, so that we can prove and provide information that at best and most times exonerates our drivers or our bus guardians, because it's very easy to blame. You know, it's a very, very dangerous environment out on the road, and you'd be surprised with, you know, the amount of incidents where cars actually have small bumps with our buses, and they're big, bright yellow vehicles on the road and very difficult to miss. So it's very surprising when this happens. But actually it's unsurprising. So the information that we have allows us to work with the authorities to be able to prove how an incident occurred. And if there was fault on our part, it also allows us to improve as we go forward, ensure that we don't have those same issues again. So all of the information that we have is integrated into a lot of dashboards and KPIs. We actually have 29 alerts built into our systems with regards to driver management on vehicles, be it safety management of the passenger, or be it safety management of the external environment or the vehicle itself. Obviously, that comes with cybersecurity protection that we have, the amount of data that we have as well. We can be very vulnerable. And again, it allows us to take all of that information and have a cycle of continuous improvement. So this is just an overview, really, of the systems that we have on vehicles. And the reasons the vehicle is half yellow and half white is because we have white vehicles providing corporate services and we have yellow vehicles providing school transport services. And these have evolved over the years. We deliver and exceed above the regulatory requirements because it's a responsibility that we take as a business. Now, that works for 100% of the customers that buy into us as a service delivery provider. There are companies out there that are happy with the regulatory minimums, but for us, it's not good enough. So just to have tracking and CCTV on a vehicle isn't sufficient for us. It doesn't allow us to drive those efficiencies and certainly doesn't allow us to provide the optimization that we need as a business. But more importantly, it allows us to deliver that enhanced level of safeguarding that is very, very important, whether it's RFID tracking of students, which has actually been extremely important during the COVID period. So if you consider that every student that boards the vehicle checks in and checks out, a bit like on the metro with your Noel card, on a system on the vehicle, it allows us to know which student at what point, where they're sat on the vehicle with the CCTV we have. So if there is an incident around track and trace for COVID, we know exactly which students were on that vehicle at which time, which actually mitigates a lot of the panic that existed, certainly at the very beginning, even with robust health management systems. So in terms of our architecture, so if I could just take you through. So all of the, I said at the beginning, all of the information that we have through all of those systems that we use are stored on our secured servers, whether that's our data recording of CCTV, whether it's the GPS data, the vehicle tracking. We can see historical data and then start building models, certainly for optimization, and I'll come on to route optimization systems in a minute. The IVMS onboard the vehicle, so the full package, provides us with improved monitoring, tracking, and also identifying key issues for resolution. When I first started, more and more systems that we applied to vehicles, it was almost, and that's why I mentioned at the beginning that the culture has to be right, because the drivers were concerned that there was an element of Big Brother watching. Now, how we communicate that is by saying that the majority of times it is there to exonerate them. We don't work on a fear-based culture. So, we set policies in place with procedures, we communicate them, we make drivers aware, and certainly through our supervisors and managers, aware of what those systems do and how they protect. And more often than not, as I said, what it does is it exonerates the driver. And actually, in occasions where there's been a near miss and the driver has taken evasive action to avoid a situation caused by a third party, driver or pedestrian, it allows us to award them for doing an excellent job, because more often than not, the amount of times that a driver will take evasive action through defensive driver training, it will actually reduce the impact to a company, whether it's financial, reputational, or whether there is an incident caused that's body harm, etc., which is obviously something that we always want to avoid. But there's nothing worse when the driver is sat there thinking that he's going to receive the blame, but actually we have data that can exonerate and prove that actually the driver was not to blame. That doesn't stop us from still going through some form of training programs for those drivers to ensure that they are even better prepared for when those incidents may happen again. So combined with all of the data that we have through our vehicles, we also have our own app, which allows us to, and certainly our customers, to access real live data in terms of live notifications. And that improves transparency of information and it improves safety. More importantly, it provides that level of assurance, certainly for students, but it's also helped companies that want to know that their employees who are using transportation, certainly our services, that they're on time for work, It also allows us to remove the bus was late blame culture that exists out there, because we are an easy target. And we do have robust KPIs with companies. So it allows us to have those robust KPIs, and we're more than happily to sign up to them with companies, so that we can then set dashboards in place for lots of information to provide those companies that level of assurance that they have a responsible company providing those services for them. You know, you can outsource your services, but you can't outsource the responsibility. And again, that is a cultural understanding that needs to be there. And that certainly applies to us for our installation of all of our IVMS systems or our vehicle maintenance as well. We don't outsource it, we have full responsibility. And I ultimately and my team remain fully accountable on a day-to-day basis. So the data that we receive allows us to focus on areas that need to be improved or should be optimized, rather than just a scattergun approach of you know, just looking at our fleet management systems, just looking at the number of drivers we have. So we try to optimize the level of resources that we have in the business to ensure that it's the right value for money that is being provided. So rather than using expressions like return on investment, etc., where you know, we look at the number of assets that are applied with the number of the revenue that's coming into the business. Of course, that's important, but it's very easy to run services with too much resource, and that's waste. So over a period of time, the systems that we've brought in have allowed us to reduce our spare vehicle and spare driver requirements. That has also allowed us to become more efficient with the way that we maintain our fleet, rather than feast and famine, everything being done on one day and nothing being done on the next day. It allows us to set the right levels of resources to manage the right level of service that we need to provide. And of course, ultimately, it allows us to improve the mobility services that we provide. It allows us, certainly with the technology that we have, to look at new modes of transportation, be it on-demand services, be it community services, and get to a point where, you know, we are recognised as providing excellent value for service, excellent value for money, great customer satisfaction through systems that we have, through that transparency of data. Just two of the systems that we've recently invested in. The first one was something that I'd worked with in the UK many years ago when I worked for National Express Group. And that's the fatigue monitoring system. Now, what this allows us to do is monitor the driver's activity when he's driving a vehicle. So all of the communications that we put out around fatigue management, the number of hours drivers should work, the number of hours they should rest, what they should do when they have their own time, because we have that responsibility, we have that duty of care. It isn't just employing a driver, putting him in a vehicle and telling him to go from A to B. It extends far beyond that. And it can be very complex at times. But this system was an additional level of giving us assurance through constant recording of driver activity when they're behind the vehicle. So we are able to monitor the driver's facial expressions. We're able to identify yawning, excessive blinking, high, heavy head movements. We're allowed to monitor mobile phone use and oral intake. So in the vehicle itself, there is an alarm system that the driver, and this is one of the 29 alerts and event recordings that we have on the vehicle. It will warn the driver that he is doing something that he shouldn't be doing. He has up to 60 seconds to react to that alarm. In some cases, it's 30 seconds, particularly where it's blinking. That alarm also is notified within our operational control center, OCC. And if we recognize that there is an element of danger, that we will stop the vehicle. We have live access through CCTV, and we can communicate with the driver as well. In addition to that, we do random audits. So we take a percentage of our fleet every day that our quality QHSE team, through our quality inspectors, will review data, and they will look if it's a first warning. The driver would be informed, it would be called to the meeting, and it allows us to monitor the expectations of employees. It's not scare tactics, but it's about saying, look, you are the most important person on that vehicle, responsible for up to 50 passengers at some times, traveling on a road that may be a speed limit of 80 kilometers an hour or 100 kilometers an hour, whatever the type of vehicle may be, or driving in a heavy residential area and you're using your mobile phone. There are many things that we have a zero tolerance on. No matter how difficult recruitment is, we will not tolerate such things as the use of a mobile phone whilst driving. So the first time it happens, there is a strict warning. The second time, unfortunately, we would be parting company with that employee. The same applies to our drug and alcohol policy, by the way, as well. So we have a very robust drug and alcohol policy where we test 10% randomly of our employees every month. The risk exists and we can't ignore that. We don't allow drivers to drink. We certainly don't allow drivers to smoke. But more importantly, it's the fatigue indexes that we look at. So we need to make sure that we don't sweat the asset, we don't have vehicles working too long, that we have a robust driver's hours agreement, working agreement in place where they work a set number of days and a set number of hours, and they have a minimum number of periods of rest to ensure that they are not fatigued. My reputation, the company's reputation, the UAE's reputation cannot be damaged by poor working practices. We now have 100% of our fleet installed with the facial monitoring system on top of the other technology that we have. Another area that we're looking at the moment is the advanced driver assistance systems. And this is a camera-based sensor that provides improved awareness of the driver's environment. So it has features such as lane departure warning systems, front collision warning, pedestrian detection, and distance monitoring. We're going through a proof of concept at the moment. It is a large investment, but we feel that it is going to be a part of the system that integrates with everything else that we have that further reduces incidents, not only for our vehicles, but it will provide data for third parties on the road. Now, some of the forums that I've spoken at, certainly with Road Safety UAE, one of the police captains, Captain Salim, I've spoken to him about the vast amounts of data that would be there. And what we need to do is work together, not to pass information on to get third parties in trouble, but to raise the awareness. We do, as I said, 1/3 of a million kilometers a day. So the information that we would collect, whether it's jaywalking, whether it's motorbikes, whether it's cars, whether it's excessive braking, lane discipline, by third parties would allow us to pass that information on so that it provides a general awareness of how the roads are acting and what it is that needs to be monitored. More importantly, it provides us with an enhanced level systems that allow our driver to take more evasive action in the event of an impending incident. So I mentioned navigation. We invested with a large European company 2 years ago, a route management system, which we call Navigator. So it doesn't actually navigate the driver. We don't allow our drivers to drive buses and use GPS. As we all know, that the road systems and certainly GPS is not designed for commercial vehicles, 3-point turns, U-turns, and certainly access to certain roads. So there is still an element of manual planning. However, what it allows us to do is concentrate our efforts in optimizing and making our systems and our routes more efficient. It allows us to identify the location, certainly for students to get to school and home so that we can have better journeys, shorter journeys and less time. You know, we all certainly drive for reduced journeys by bus. What we do need is students back on the bus, but that's another story, and that will come with schools reopening. It allows us to focus on our fleet and provide improved resource management where we have, we don't have excessive vehicles and spare vehicles required to meet those services. It allows us to provide better forecasting, certainly from a financial perspective. It allows us to understand the road type and the attributes that we require for the various types of vehicles. So in layman's terms, we put location data into the system, we push a big button, and it pushes out the number of vehicles that we would require for a given service. It also allows us to put the attributes of the roads, whether there are U-turn requirements, whether there are narrow access or height restrictions, put those attributes in and then provide different routings. It allows us to focus on the number of students and the pickup points, again, so that we can reduce the journey time, making it a better service and therefore drive modal shift from car to bus. It allows us to provide estimated time to departure and arrivals through the app that we have, the STS app, so that parents can see the time that the bus is meant to be arriving at the school is accurate. They can also see that the student has boarded the vehicle for the return journey home. Again, providing that enhanced level of assurance that provides excellent safeguarding. It allows us to look at the traffic conditions during the different peaks that we have in travel time, because we know journeys vary during the day. So it allows us to be accurate, certainly with companies that are looking at mass transportation of their employees from one point to another, to ensure that they can meet their expectations for their customers during the day. And it also allows us to review the road developments, because as we know, new roads pop up all of the time. So the tracking system and the mapping systems that we have are real time. So we can then change our routing requirements based on the road network and new roads that have opened. So the key outputs for this part of our technology is that it improves the level of customer satisfaction. It certainly improves the journey time for students travelling to school. And they have a hard enough day as it is. So we need to reduce that time as much as possible. And the answer isn't just to put more buses on the road. One, it's not commercially sustainable. So there is a balance. But it's our responsibility to ensure that we reduce the cost base for schools where we can, while still extending the values of the school and certainly the values of STS. And I said at the beginning about our safety culture. We created 3 simple words: safe, timely, smart, and they resonate with every level of employee in the business. In terms of optimization, it allows us to look at the reduction in non-revenue kilometers, so dead kilometers, when you're not providing a service. It's pointless our buses running all around Dubai or all around the Emirates for fueling and maintenance. So it allows us to reduce that, because fuel is an expensive cost. It allows us to do the reduction in fleet and manpower, as I said, around optimizing. And obviously that has a positive impacts on our operating costs and our CapEx as well. The process improvement, automation is always going to be a requirement for us in the business of industry, in the industry in today. But manual work is still, and certainly management of employees is critical. Positive mindset with the right culture. That then leads into improved communication. You know, whether it's around new systems that we have, whether it's around risks that we're facing. So the systems that we have allow us to push out key information, certainly to our drivers through the systems that they have in the vehicle, certainly through the interactive screen to communicate with those drivers. It's sustainable for us. We're constantly looking at improving. We're reducing our CO2 emissions. That obviously works well with the biofuel investment that we're making through neutral fuels as well. So yes, we want more vehicles on the road, but we want less cars on the road. So therefore, the reduced CO2 emissions, certainly with the biofuel, and the next step that will be taken, which will be electric vehicles. That's the end of my presentation, and I hope I was clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Steve, for your insightful presentation. And I think it gives us a lot of confidence that our children are in safe hands, especially when you have implemented so many good practices within the organization. And I think it's very important. And thank you so much. And if for the participants, if you have any questions for Steve, then please post them in the Q&A box, and with his name, so that we know that this question is for him. Okay, now we'll move to our next presenter. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so our next presenter is Mr. William Frank Newman. He's the Corporate Sales Manager, Middle East and Asia at MiX Telematics. William manages business development and channel partner engagement in fleet management for MiX Telematics throughout Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Asia. So he manages quite a big region. In today's presentation, William will provide us an overview of a new app developed by their company, as well as he will talk about the AI solution which they provide to prevent vehicles crashes. So floor is yours, William. You can now share your presentation.
I believe you're still sharing at the moment, Syed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So firstly, a very good morning to everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction there, Syed. Thank you to Dr. Sangeeta for obviously inviting us to participate in this webinar. Steve, that was a fantastic presentation that you gave there. I see that you've been in this business for 20 years and it definitely shows. I think what the STS company has implemented already is a fantastic solution. But nonetheless, let's get on to a bit of what Mix Telematics is currently bringing to the table. And we'll have a general presentation around, driver road safety and driving safety with regards to AI, ADAS, and application technology. So that's the crux of the presentation I'll be taking you through today. But before I get into any of that, I'll just be taking you through a brief introduction into Mix Telematics as a company. So Mix Telematics as a company started way back in 1996 in South Africa, my country of birth, actually. We're a SaaS company. We provide software as a service, obviously, and our 4 pillars to our company revolve around efficiency, safety, compliance, and security. We're a company that has proven ROI, and we drive our customer retention with regards to our ROI numbers. We have more than 1,000 employees globally, and currently as it stands, we have a global network of over 750,000 subscribers that are part of the Mix Telematics network. So that's a bit of a company snapshot to give you a bit of context as to the sort of where we're from and the fact that we've certainly been in this industry as one of, and certainly in the forefront of this industry for many, many years. So the first portion that I'll speak to you about is applications within road safety. And I'll touch base on this topic right at the end of the presentation too. So an application that we've recently relaunched as such, we've had the MyMix application for a while, and this has been tailored slightly and has some really, really robust technology that's now been implemented into it too. So more recently, we've launched our MyMix tracking application, as we like to term it. What's important here is not to get misguided with tracking applications and just a dot on a map as a fleet manager. So if you're working from a health and safety perspective, this tracking solution and the tracking solutions that are now becoming available on the market and the one that we've recently launched doesn't only give you information with regards to the location of your vehicle, whether it be live or historic location, but offers you a lot more information on the back of that too. I'll get into that in a short while. Now, how this child was born, if I can put it that way, with certain pains, gains, and efforts, which I'll take you through. So the pains being the lack of vehicle and driver activity outside of your core fleet. So most organizations out there obviously have a core fleet of vehicles, but sometimes you may have a certain fleet or subcontractors, et cetera, that come in and out of your business on a seasonal basis. So the lack of visibility around those specific vehicles. You also have the cost, the perceived cost, the inconvenience of actual hardware installation of telematics devices onto vehicles, which is also a pain that's experienced by a lot of our clients and prospects. And the inability to scale the fleet management as a response to changing customer demands and operational needs, as most organizations obviously have. So the gains around this would be a more holistic view of that entire fleet, whether it be core or non-core fleet, as we like to term it. Improved overall effectiveness of fleet management, including the aspects around risk management and safety, and obviously improve the overall safety of drivers and staff, and including non-professional drivers and contracted staff, which you don't always have a control over. And the effects around that is, desire minimal effort in terms of disruption and costs to be able to get full coverage of all those undertaken trips that are obviously relevant to your organization. So when we're talking about unmet customer needs, we start to talk about, as I mentioned earlier, core and non-core vehicles. So these are the sorts of verticals that we're looking at targeting, if I can put it that way. Keep in mind that an application like the Marmix tracking application and similar technologies that are available at the moment could also be very useful to your core vehicles of your company. Don't only think of this as a tool for non-core vehicles. If you have a business that has a high level of safety standards, et cetera, and you want to reduce risk on roads, and you don't have any solutions or any systems implemented into your vehicle, into your core vehicles as such, a solution like this could potentially work for you too. However, what we do find is that the targeted approach we're taking is going to existing clients with core fleets and trying to engage into their non-core fleets as such. Items like leased vehicles, companies' cars, private cars that are used for business mileage, rentals and maintenance cover vehicles, employees traveling in rental cars, and those subcontractor fleets, which we more often than not, especially within this region, don't have much control over with regards to that training and development that happens in the background. However, we still want to get a visual as to how those drivers or how those drivers of vehicles are behaving on our roads. So the mixed telematics approach to this, as I went through those pains, gains, and obviously efforts earlier on. So we've had this historical Marmix application that was developed a few years ago, and that's always given us tools with regards to being able to feedback from the fleet management platform on driver behavior, performance, and task management aspects, etc. It can give you ranking scores versus other drivers within your specific pool. And now we've added the ability to use a phone as an onboard computer. And what we have found is that we get an extremely high level of data accuracy when compared to a traditional onboard computer for a vehicle. The accuracy may not ever be as robust and as accurate as a fully fledged onboard computer that a company like ours may provide, or similar companies may provide, but it certainly gives you a high level of accuracy. This accuracy revolves around your standard driver behavior metrics of yesteryear. Items like overspeeding, cornering, braking, acceleration, and can also monitor phone usage while actually driving the vehicle too. Now, the wonderful aspect about this is that it actually gives your driver in vehicle real-time audio and visual feedback with regards to their driver behavior performance, which is an important aspect because there can be direct and immediate corrective action taken. But then this also then links into the fleet management platform. So the data that you get from traditional onboard computers combines with the data that you'll then get for subcontracted fleets or seasonal fleets as such, but they all link onto a single platform with a single reporting tool, etc. So with regards to reports, you aren't going to various different reports for application versus onboard computer style devices as such. It'll all be under one sort of visible reporting tool. And that's where the real strength in this lies. And that's what ultimately gives us that real app-based fleet management potential. Now, that's it for the Marmix and applications within fleet management and road safety. And I'll touch base on that slightly again later on. Now moving on to mixed vision and mixed vision AI and ADAS solutions and how this links into road safety. I know that Mr. Steve from STS Group did touch on a couple of these points too, slightly earlier on, as his company is very much at the forefront of using this sort of technology in the local market, which is fantastic. He mentioned that he's on a POC at the moment using ADAS solutions as well, which is something that we can bring to the table. And we've certainly seen a lot of advances within, the recent past with regards to this. And it certainly is a sector that is fast tracking and is certainly the future of road safety and fleet management, not only from a human capital perspective and from a human learning perspective, but from a vehicle and a machine learning perspective too. So let me take you a bit through mixed vision. Now, a lot of what happens within the markets, and not only within the UAE markets, but also throughout Asia, wherever it may be globally, is people tend to have the notion that, telematics, AR solutions, ADAS, etc., it's all expensive. It's all expensive. I can't afford it. I don't have the budget for it, etc. But what we have found, and we've done obviously multiple case studies, and we've got a subscriber base of over 750,000 assets and vehicles that we monitor globally. What we have found is that traditional vehicle telematics as such provides us with a pretty strong 5-to-1 ROI rate. Okay, so let's not talk about price of hardware. Let's not talk about price of subscription. These are the real numbers. You're going to get a 5-to-1 ROI rate for your business. Now, when we add in these layers that are now coming in with regards to ADAS and AR video technology, we're starting to look at a 10-to-1 ROI rate. Now, if I was given any sort of investment opportunity and I was told, listen, William, you're going to put $10 down now, in 5 years' time, you're going to get $100 back, I'm certainly going to take up that financial manager with regards to that offering. And I think that we need to start considering the way that we think about road safety and fleet management, and we need to start reconsidering the way that we sell our arguments into fleet owners, etc. Because more often than not, it can be seen as pretty short-sighted and just a price and a cost. But there's a definite ROI that can be achieved with the effective implementation of a telematic solution. And there's an even greater ROI to be achieved with an effective AR video solution implemented too. And this doesn't even go into account the amount of lives that you're saving on the road, which is obviously priceless. Now, with regards to obviously video and telematics and achieving that 10-to-1 ROI, it's all about identifying risky driver behavior and poor driving performance, the live tracking and the live streaming capabilities, the historical tracking, and post-event driver coaching, accident reconstruction and exoneration, which is an extremely important factor, as Steve actually mentioned in his presentation earlier on. And we'll obviously move on to those advanced driver systems, which I'll discuss in slightly more detail shortly. Now, when we start to speak about, traditional telematic systems and machine vision-based video solutions, this is the sort of levels that you start to play in. So you have definite columns over there with regards to inputs, KPIs, and customer outcomes. So with regards to monitoring driver performance, your input events would be your general telematics events, and those ones of yesteryear around, speeding, cornering, acceleration, braking. The list does go on, but those are your basic events that you're trying to monitor. Your KPIs around that generally revolve around optimization around kilometers or mileage driven / asset utilization, vehicle utilization, reduce fuel consumption, minimizing of wear and tear. And by the effective implementation of that, you can obviously reduce your operating costs for your organization. Now, when you add that additional layer with regards to machine vision, that's more around monitoring risky driver behavior. And with the use of machine vision, AR, and advanced driver assistance solutions, you can start to monitor those aspects like fatigue, distractions, seatbelt usage, smoking while driving, mobile phone usage while driving, lane departure, your forward collision pre-warnings, your following distances, etc. So we start to encompass a bit more rather than just those basic levels of telematics offerings. By obviously doing this, we're going to reduce the number of accidents on road and reduce the severity of the accidents, which is also very important. This obviously leads to improved safety and once again, reducing the operating costs of your fleet. So both of these solutions, whether it be basic telematics or telematics plus ADAS solutions and AR technology, ultimately lead to a strong reduction in your operating costs. So with regards to these rich customer insights and where we see the future of this going. Okay, so as we stand now, we've got this video and AI technology that's integrated with telematics solutions that's being used currently. It's been on the market for a while now. It's certainly taken big strides at the moment. And the basis of the AI is obviously being used for autonomous vehicles. And where we do see the future going is that there'll be a strong move from driver vision to machine vision, and trying to understand how we can improve on actual vehicles and on actual assets and improve the behavior of those specific hardware items as such, not necessarily from a controllable driver perspective, but from a machine learning perspective too. I'm going to take you through a short video now on the Mixed Vision AI. So this will give you a better understanding as to what currently is on the market. So, go this.
Mixed Vision AI is a video telematics solution that takes fleet management to the next level by detecting risky driving behaviour and protecting drivers. It works using advanced machine learning to monitor unsafe driving styles that could lead to fatal crashes, and turns real-time data into business intelligence, providing visibility into the safety of your fleet operations. The driver-facing camera focuses on the driver and detects AI events in real time, including fatigue.
Fatigue warning. Please rest now.
Phone use, distraction, smoking, and more.
No phone allowed.
The road-facing camera uses AI to detect risky driving behaviour, such as an unsignalled lane departure and unsafe following distance to prevent collisions. There's also an in-cab camera that records real-time visual and audio footage of inside the vehicle. Plus, a dash-mounted AI driving coach to guide drivers in real time with unobtrusive visual alerts. Mixed Vision AI then makes it possible to turn that data into decisions and get real-time insight into risky driving behaviours and view event videos within the Mix Fleet Manager platform, which can also be accessed through our Mix mobile app. In addition, details on driving performance and driver scores can be viewed by both fleet managers and drivers through our My Mix app. With Mixed Vision AI, driver behaviour, operations, and the business performance of your fleet will be positively impacted. Detect and prevent with Mixed Vision AI, keeping you connected and your drivers and vehicles protected.
So that was a brief video as to what the AI and ADAS solution looks like. If the acting was very poor, then please direct it to my managing director, old Brody Van Berg, because he was actually the actor in that video. So don't take it out on me. With regards to the in-cab equipment positioning, now this is obviously an item that gets discussed quite frequently, especially at road safety forums. Some of these devices that are available in the market can be quite bulky, can be quite obtrusive to the actual visual that the driver might have of the road facing him. So there's, I mean, as you can see on this over here, the devices are obviously very small. They are getting smaller as we obviously move forward in time. There's options for dash-mounted AR solutions, pillar-mounted AR solutions. This is your driver coach from an ADAS perspective that I'll touch base on slightly later on. This is your ADAS camera and your ADAS solution offering. And then we also have your in-cab camera, which gives us a decent peripheral view as to exactly what's happening throughout the entire cabin as such. Now, we'll move on to ADAS in particular. And this obviously lends itself to that driver cab coach. So, you know, Steve mentioned these items earlier on, but with the ADAS solution, you can start monitoring following distance. That in-cab driver coach also gives you real-time feedback and visual feedback with regards to your performance on the road itself. It can detect vehicles, it can detect following distances, and it can start to trigger if you are then obviously too close, or forward collision warnings, etc. And also has the ability to detect and report on lane departure warnings. Now, linking back to the MyMix application, and the beauty of a full, robust platform is that you have the ability to use applications for road safety. You have the ability to use basic telematics. You have the ability to use ADAS and AR solutions, which are on the market now. But they all interlink at the end of the day, all the way back into the MyMix application. So your actual driver is able to get real-time feedback and post-trip feedback as to his violations, as to his trip analysis, as to his performance relative to his other colleagues within his organization too. So as you can see that there is a full, robust 360 solution that is currently available. And this certainly is the right now of telematics and road safety and fleet management. And we're also very excited to obviously see what's going to be coming in the near future. So we can certainly expect some big things. Now, with regards to some sort of consumer feedback and client feedback, we can see that we have one client over here who's at a 90% or 96% accident reduction rate and 100% reduction in customer complaints, which is obviously very important. And there's a bit of a quotation from them. So yeah, without further ado, that's obviously the end of my presentation as such. So thank you for your time and for listening to our presentation about obviously road safety applications, ADAS and AR. Feel free to reach out to me on my email, which will be provided by Syed after this presentation. And I think that we're safe to say that we'll save any questions for right at the end of the webinar too. So not necessarily any questions now, but let me hand back to you, Syed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, William. Thank you so much for your insightful presentation. Really appreciate. And I think we can see that how AI technology adds value to the basic telematics. I think this is what I have noted down. And also the ROI of these solutions are quite impressive. So usually people think that they are very expensive solution, but we can see that they are very quite economical and easy to use. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions for William, then please write them down in the Q&A box with his name, and we will answer them in the Q&A session. So now our third speaker for today is Mr. Naveen Sook. He is the Fleet Board Manager at Daimler Commercial Vehicles, MENA. Naveen has over 30 years of experience with Mercedes-Benz trucks. And today Naveen will present about the safety systems of Daimler trucks and how can the legislation, manufacturers and fleet operators can contribute to safer roads and less accidents. So Naveen, floor is yours. And I think I've already, yeah. Yes, Naveen, can you unmute yourself, please?
Unmuted now, so I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Syed, for the introduction, and thank you to the two speakers talking so much about telematics. I will touch a little bit of it from our side in our presentation from Mercedes-Benz or Daimler Trucks. So my name is Naveen Sook, another South African, followed by William from MiX Telematics, who just presented to you. I'm in charge of our Fleet Board business, which is our telematics system and driver training for our brands, Mercedes-Benz trucks. Those of you who don't know Daimler or the name Daimler, Daimler is the holding company for Mercedes-Benz, Fuso and Freightliner trucks. So in this region, you will see quite a lot of Mercedes-Benz and maybe Fuso trucks, and also some Mercedes-Benz buses on the road. And from a manufacturer point of view, during this presentation, I will be sharing with you the technical improvements, mainly related to our safety systems on our trucks and how we are one of the pioneers in safety systems for commercial vehicles. Okay. The slide is not changing. I'm not sure what's happening, Syed, from your side?
If you please exit and you can try again, like you can exit the slideshow and share again, please.
Okay, there we go. It takes a little bit of a time.
Great.
Okay, so to continue, I think there are three major players when it comes to reducing road accidents on heavy commercial vehicles or trucks and basically all vehicles on the road, and to make our roads safer. And one of them is the legislatures or the local laws of each country. Then we have us as vehicle manufacturers, who play really an important part. And next is our customers. So these three parties need to work together to make our vehicles and roads a lot safer. I'm sure this is quite a familiar scene that we see in the Gulf region or even in the UAE roads. So a lot of truck accidents sometimes on the roads. And there are various reasons for this. You know, we lose a lot of truck drivers' lives, other lives on the road also. And one of the major contributing factors to these accidents is the legislation here is not as tough as it is, as I can say, in Europe. So if we look at following distance rules, driver training, the type of vehicles used, these are all linked to what causes some of these fatalities and road accidents. So as you can see here, rear end collisions will be one of the highest ones. Those of you who are familiar with the region probably drive on the roads from the Northern Emirates going up to Abu Dhabi. And yeah, for trucks, apart from certain roads in Dubai, drivers are not allowed to overtake, so they got to follow all hundreds of trucks on one lane, maybe all the way up to the Saudi border and also crossing into other countries. So this causes a lot of fatigue on them. As I said, following distance was a major contributing factor to these accidents. And us as Mercedes-Benz, you will see in the futures, in the next slides, how we as a manufacturer contribute tremendously with our safety systems to try and limit these accidents in both the lateral stability and longitudinal stability of our vehicles. So fortunately, these are figures from the Oman Observer last year. We can see from 2012 up to 2018, so almost 6 years of data, that accidents and fatalities are reducing. However, I don't think we are at the number where we want to be at the moment. So here again, 11 people killed and 57 injured by a truck accident in Dubai last year. So again, all related to driving behavior, types of vehicles, the technical condition of vehicles, etc. All of them are many contributing factors towards reducing or causing these accidents on our roads. So let's look at the manifold now of who are the various parties responsible for road safety. So these are just amongst a few. However, I think these are the most important ones. So first we look at OEMs, so manufacturers of commercial vehicles especially. How much of effort and how much of safety equipment are they offering in their trucks? So from our side, on Mercedes-Benz truck side, I can safely say we are the pioneers in safety systems in our trucks. It started off way back in the 1980s. You will see in a video shortly how we started off from basic ABS or anti-lock braking system. And today in 2021 with our latest Mercedes-Benz or full trucks, where we are with safety systems. So definitely with Daimler Truck, safety is a high priority. And obviously we will not stop developing safety systems. Then we get fleet operators. So fleet operators in the region, yeah, they traditionally, I can maybe say, word in inverted commas, a bit old-fashioned. However, they are slowly evolving and looking at cost, looking at accidents, looking at driver training, looking at telematic systems, etc. So here we are fortunate from our side. I can safely say we have quite a good relationship between our regional office, our local dealers, and together with our fleet operators. So there are various trainings that we perform both live and in classroom, especially related to safety systems, so that the customer is having the awareness and also feeling exactly how a safety system works in our trucks. The next one, and the most important one, is the driver. So if we look in today's situation, especially here in the Gulf region, majority of the drivers are coming from Asian countries and have no experience with let's say, European truck technology. So they are just driving the truck. However, that's all they are willing or able to do now without driver training. So understanding and driver training on the safety systems and use of telematics and stuff is very, very important to educate our drivers. So here we can also say that we are one of the leaders with the driver training set up amongst our headquarters and our dealers and customers. So at the end of the day, the driver is the main person responsible in the truck until we go to fully autonomous trucks. Then we can eliminate the driver, but that's still very, very far away. However, not too far. Then we have legislations. So each country has different laws. For example, we take the GCC countries. Some of them have weight control, some of them do not. Especially here in the UAE, you see these trucks loading aggregates coming from the Northern Emirates, delivering all over the UAE. They are driving with excess of 100 tons. This is not normal for a European truck operation. However, also for the drivers and for the other road users, it's something very, very important, because a truck with 100 tons takes a really long time to stop. So weight control is something very important to come in. The next one that's really important and very, very strict in Europe and other countries is driving hours. So again, here, most companies, except maybe you get an oil and gas or a petroleum company, will stipulate recommended driving hours of, let's say, 8 hours per day. However, most of the companies here, the drivers are driving based on kilometers driven. They get paid on kilometers driven or loads delivered. Therefore, they are able to drive 24 hours a day if they wish to. This causes a lot of driver fatigue, and also leads to unsafe roads and these type of rear-end collisions. From an educational institution, I think you will hear a little bit more from Ian later on. He's from the driving school side, and we've had various meetings with him. So here, driver educational, driver training based from the time the driver goes for his local license until the time that he's handed over a proper truck from our dealerships is very, very important, that the driver has all these systems in the truck. However, if he does not understand these systems, then unfortunately nothing is going to work. And yeah, we see it from our telematic systems. For example, most drivers just don't use the engine brake on the truck, which is something that leads to safety and preventative brake wear and things like that. Then lastly, you get the society. I think this is a worldwide problem. Most passenger car drivers do not understand the dynamics of a commercial vehicle loaded up to 50 or 60 or 100 tons. They don't know the stopping distance. They misjudge the speed of the truck. Another important one is blind spots. The truck driver is faced with numerous blind spots around him and around his trailer. And I'm sure you see this almost on a daily basis, especially in heavy traffic. You get passenger car or light motor vehicle drivers always cutting into front or the side of the truck where the driver has almost zero view. It's in his full blind spot. Again, we will see later on in a slide with Mercedes-Benz trucks, we have now have a digital mirror cam system. So it's no more mirrors outside the truck, it's a camera. And here this eliminates a lot of the blind spots for our truck, apart from other safety systems that contribute for blind spot areas like side guard assist. You will see it later on. Okay, we will look at now some figures. This is based from Europe, European data, when they did the analysis of serious truck accidents. And I'll just go through this quite quickly and show you how we as a manufacturer contribute heavily towards reducing these types of accidents. So the two main contributors here was, again, rear end collisions, almost 1/3 of the amount of truck accidents. And the next one was truck guidance accidents. So truck guidance means the driver loses concentration and changes lanes, or he falls asleep. And if there's no warning systems in the truck, then that causes the truck to have an accident with other road users, or to sometimes fall over on the other side of the road or leave the road totally. This was further drilled down by the authorities in Germany who gathered this data. So again, when it came to driver behavior related to the braking for rear end collisions, yeah, around 38% of them performed emergency braking, but it could have been too late. You've got to understand the dynamics of the truck here. Again, on a loaded truck, 40-ton truck in Europe, also takes quite a long time to stop. Then you had another almost 40% with no brake intervention whatsoever. This can be a result of many things, but mainly it can be drivers' fatigue, drivers falling asleep, or drivers not concentrating at all on the road, either busy with their cell phones. And this is common in the Gulf region also. We see almost everybody has a smartphone here, and most of these truck drivers are even talking on Skype to their families while driving on the highway. So yeah, that led to a lot of rear end collisions. And when we talk about lane guidance, again, another 31% of them just strayed off the road, maybe falling asleep. Another 1/3 was due to oncoming traffic. So on a two-way road, you might get other road users trying to overtake, and they misjudge the distance and speed of the trucks. And then the last one was, again, over 1/3 was unintended lane change. So here, emergency lane change for no reason, or maybe a late reaction where the driver tries to avoid knocking into the back of another motor vehicle. However, he changes his lane and causes an accident, or the truck turns over. So how we as Mercedes-Benz contributed to this was, obviously we had, if we look at rear end collisions, anti-lock braking system, which is ABS, was developed a really long time ago in the 1980s. Then we have, when we launched our new Actros in 1996, we introduced, this was the first truck to have a fully electronic braking system. So basically it's this braking by wire, which is much more faster and much more reactive than a conventional truck with just air brake systems. And yeah, today we are much more involved with rear end collisions. When it comes to active brake assist, we are now on active brake assist 5. I will explain that later on, and also the laws in Europe. Truck guidance system, yeah, to avoid all these lane changes and drivers drifting from one lane to another. We introduced ESP, which is the Electronic Stability Program. This is common from passenger car even now on commercial vehicles, and it's law in Europe. And then we have our lane keeping assist, which is a camera mounted in the center of the windscreen. At first, it was a warning system. However, today it is an active system that actually gives the driver feedback or steers the truck back into the lane. We will all look at it in the next few slides, the details of how it works and how we as a manufacturer continue to contribute to lowering road accidents by developing systems in our trucks that will help the driver in case of accidents. So the law in Europe, they started off in 2014 or even prior to that, looking at mandatory safety systems in trucks. So the first one was mandatory for electronic stability program, or like some ESP, or stability control. Thereafter, or up to today, it's mandatory for all trucks and buses to have advanced emergency braking system. So this is to avoid rear end collisions. And I can safely say here, Mercedes-Benz is the system on our trucks is much more ahead of what the legislation is in Europe. So just to give you a quick idea, when this was launched in Europe, the idea was to slow the vehicle down, that if you have an impact, the impact happens at lower speeds. However, with Mercedes-Benz systems on our active brake assist system, we actually stop the vehicle to zero, so dead stop for both moving and stationary obstacles, including pedestrians. And then the last one was lane departure warning systems. So again, here we are one of the leaders with this system, where our truck is now bringing the vehicle back into the lane in case the driver is veering off. So on Mercedes-Benz truck side, in 2006, we launched our first active brake assist system. In 2010, it evolved to the second level, which was outperforming the legal requirements. As I explained, the legal requirement in Europe was to slow the vehicle down, not to stop. However, Mercedes is one step ahead and our truck stops. In 2019, we've now launched the 5th generation of ABA, which is active brake assist. This you will see later on also, and I'll explain a little bit more detail of that. And then when it comes to lane departure warning systems, this is technology over 20 years ago. So in the early 2000s, we had the first camera system in the windscreen that was just giving a warning to the driver, either from the left or right speaker, if he veered across the yellow or white line. Then in 2017, we launched side guard assist, which is also a warning for the blind spot area in case a cyclist or a pedestrian or a car is in your blind spot of the driver. And as of today, we have active side guard assist, where the system, if it detects a pedestrian or a car or a cyclist on the side of the truck or in the blind spot of the driver, the electronics will actually stop the vehicle if the driver does not intervene. So yeah, with the Mercedes-Benz, we are mainly far ahead with the technology. Right, if we talk about our value chain partners and how we all work together and why is it so important for road safety, we have Fleetboard, which is our Mercedes-Benz trucks telematics system. It's a system specifically developed for our trucks. And because it's an OEM system, we get a lot of more data than what a third-party supplier can receive from our trucks. And here we focus more on the driver behavior, the driving style, the fuel consumption, and most important, the technical status of the truck. Then we have Mercedes-Benz Service Solutions, which is our service contracts offered to customers via our dealers. This makes sure that the truck is serviced by a qualified technician and the truck is kept in the proper manner as prescribed by the manufacturer. So our technicians are well trained. The data for the servicing, scheduling, technical data, error codes where it's all available to the customer and the dealer from our Fleetboard system. So again, because it's an in-house system, we get a lot of more data. So before the customer can know what is wrong with the truck, you can also, you'll be able to see the fault codes and the uptime data or service data in our Fleetboard system. Then most important, again, to work as a team with Fleetboard and Service Solutions is our Mercedes-Benz truck training. Here we'll talk more on the driver training side of truck training. So it's important that we have all of these safety systems in our trucks. However, if the driver is not trained properly, he will not use it or he will not understand how it's working. And everything has a limit. And at the end of the day, the driver is still the main man in control of the truck. So the safety system is there to help him. However, he needs to understand it. And this is why we take driver training very, very seriously here in our region, or also worldwide. From our headquarter levels, there's a really good driver training setup, one of the best amongst all truck manufacturers, I think. And here in our region, we enforce driver training to each and every dealer. So some of our dealers have more than one driver trainer who is qualified to do a proper driver training handover of the trucks. And we keep in regular contact, updating our driver trainers and dealers with this kind of data. And when it comes again, driver training and our telematics system, Fleetboard, this is a perfect match because you can train a driver. However, after 1 week, if you don't have a monitoring system, you don't know how this driver is driving. We don't worry too much about harsh braking and harsh acceleration and stuff because that I feel is very old technology. We look at much deeper data. We have a very, very comprehensive driver performance analysis report. And that is the main tool that our driver trainers are using to identify good and bad areas of a driver, because not every driver is having a bad driving style. They may be having one part bad and most parts good. So here the driver trainer's tool is Fleetboard driver performance analysis to actively use this and train the drivers. And we see a huge reduction, not only in fuel consumption, however, also reduced accidents if a driver is driving safely and managing our safety systems in our trucks. So these three partners play a really, really important role in our setup. Okay, quickly to look at what happens when you have truck accidents. So there's a lot of consequences. When it comes to repair cost, obviously you're going to have a lot of downtime and extra cost, especially if it's not covered by insurance. Then we look at injuries to your driver or also third party, also fatalities if you have accidents. Another important one is reputational risk. So you might have a company, the name goes out, okay, this company is driving badly, they are speeding, they are rushing for loads, etc. You always see their trucks driving at high speed and having a lot of accidents. And this is bad publicity, not only for the customer, but also for us as a manufacturer, for our dealers, etc. And this is one of the reasons why we push a lot for safety systems. This also leads, if you have an accident, you have unplanned downtime, so you lose money. Again, keeping your drivers trained and having lower, almost zero accidents is the way forward. And then the other two is when it comes to insurance. Obviously, insurance companies like to make money. And the more accidents you have, the more maybe they're going to increase your premiums. And then the last one is lost load. So losing loads also loses money. If you do not have a goods in transit insurance to cover your load, then it's also an extra cost towards the customer. And lost loads also cause a lot of accidents because the load might fall off the truck because of incorrect lashing, for example. and you might get other road users crashing into the load of the truck. So imagine like a container not properly secured to a trailer and it falls on a car. It can cause quite a bit of fatalities. Yeah, now I will show you a quick video before we carry on. I will share it. If it's not playing, I will share it separately. So I hope you could see the video, and I'm not sure if it played well via the Zoom platform. However, the video will be available on a link in the chat box. So feel free to watch it anytime if you haven't had the chance to see it properly here. Basically, you could see from the video where we started off in the early 1980s, just with developing active brake assist, active anti-lock braking system, ABS, and to where we are today, where we have a truck that is stopping for moving stationary and pedestrians. And this is not only available on Mercedes-Benz trucks, but for all our brands. So Mercedes-Benz, Fuso, the Fighter range, not the small Canter range at the moment, and also Freightliner in the US. So Active Brake Assist 5 is really the state of the art when it comes to safety systems in our trucks. And this is offered as an option in our region. However, after some presentations and launches that we have done in many countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Morocco, etc., we see that sales numbers are increasing with safety systems because customers are opting for this at the moment. Yeah. The next one, I talk quickly. We were fortunate enough to have these two beautiful trucks from our headquarters in Stuttgart here in 2019, which we used for a drive, which was basically the first semi-autonomous truck drive in Dubai, so in the UAE. So these two trucks, basically, we drove them from Dubai to Abu Dhabi with our active driver assist system. So what active driver assist means is when we started off with having, talking about autonomous vehicles, we started off with basically cruise control or adaptive cruise control functions, lane assist cameras, etc. These trucks are basically on a level 2 autonomous level. Basically, what this means is that the truck can drive, but the driver still needs to be there, and the driver is still in charge of the vehicle. You might see the picture of the driver's hands not on the steering wheel here. However, he cannot do that for more than 30 seconds, and the system will warn him. However, with this type of technology where we have lateral and longitudinal stability or active systems in the truck, like adaptive cruise control and the lane departure, active lane departure warning systems. Basically, the truck is driving, and in between the lines, so in between the white lines or white and yellow lines on the road, where it takes that as a marking and it keeps the vehicle in that line. It has to have the feel of the driver's hand on the steering wheel. So basically, yeah, we could drive along the 311 from Dubai to Abu Dhabi. Just rest your hand on the steering wheel, and the truck systems did everything else, from gear changes to acceleration to braking to emergency braking or whatever needed to be done. So obviously, with the next and next and next levels of autonomous driving, this will continuously improve. When we talk about active sideguard assist, this is our latest safety feature that was launched now this year in 2021. With this active sideguard assist, it takes the passenger side of the vehicle. So on the left-hand side of the vehicle, if it picks up any pedestrian, car or cyclist, the vehicle actually now stops. So it's not only a audio and visual warning that the driver receives, so he will receive the warning, and if the driver does not act, the system applies the brake until the truck is stopped. So this again is a major contributing factor to road safety. And the latest on our new Actros, which is our mirror cam system. So basically here we do not have mirrors outside anymore. It's a camera mounted above the driver's door, and inside you have a screen with a normal conventional mirror view, and at the bottom with a wide angle view. So these are set one time when the trailer is hooked on, and you can see very clearly how the camera follows the end of the trailer while turning in tight curves like a roundabout or an intersection. We have different modes or maneuvering modes. So when the driver selects the reverse gear and he needs to dock into a loading bay, the mirror angle of the mirror changes also. What's really important in reducing the blind spot of the driver is that you do not have a conventional mirror anymore. So if you look at the picture on the top right-hand side, the truck is approaching a roundabout, and if it had a conventional mirror, the car was almost 90% in the blind spot. Now without a mirror and having a mirror cam system, the driver has the full view out of his driver's side or passenger side window. And the system is also working very effectively during the night. So it's quite a clear camera. And yeah, it's a new technology, and Mercedes-Benz trucks were the first to have this kind of technology. And obviously other manufacturers now are starting to follow us, especially on the commercial vehicle side. Talk a little bit about the new Canter, the Fuso range Euro 5, which is launched last year in the region, so mainly here in UAE. And this truck also has safety systems, not everything like the Actros, but some of the systems are quite close. So anti-lock brake system plus electronic brake force distribution is standard. A brake override system is standard. So this basically is telling if the driver is pressing the brake and accelerator together, it cuts the power to the driveline. And then airbags for driver and co-driver, and also the last one is disc brakes. So disc brakes can handle a lot more heat and therefore not burn, and it's much more reactive than conventional drum brakes. So to end, our vision is for accident-free transportation with autonomous driving. Said, you asked me to just talk a little bit here, and I mentioned that we are on currently level 2 of autonomous driving, where we have lateral and longitudinal control of the vehicle by having adaptive cruise control and our adaptive lane departure warning systems. However, as we are continuing, we will have to go to level 3, which will be partly autonomous again. I talked a little bit about level 3, whereby the truck will, we are actually almost there now from a Mercedes-Benz truck point of view, where if the driver falls asleep or has a heart attack, the system will detect that there's no intervention from the driver, and the truck will automatically start steering to the side of the road, the right-hand side of the road for left-hand drive trucks. And yeah, the truck will stop. It will apply the handbrake because we have an electronic handbrake now, and the doors will unlock if they were locked. So in case the driver was having a heart attack inside, everything is stopped, handbrake on, and doors are unlocked. So the driver can be helped by the paramedics or police or other road users. And then obviously level 4 is getting closer to no driver, no intervention, where you don't have a driver. And then level 5 is completely no driver. So you buy the truck and you put it on the highway and it will drive. But all of this is going to take a really long time, because you have to have the connectivity. You have to have all the vehicles connected, not only our trucks. It will have to work with 5G technology, for example, and you got to know what's happening in the ambient area, the surroundings around you from other vehicles. What are their intentions? Are their indicators going to be on, or things like that? So this is quite a long story, but with Mercedes-Benz, I think some of you must have seen around 2013, 2014, we had the first autonomous truck driving in Germany. So thank you very much. And yeah, sorry, it took a little bit longer than normal, but yeah, we needed to just show you how we are the leaders in safety systems.
Thank you so much, Naveen, for your wonderful presentation. We really appreciate. And if you have any questions for Naveen, then please post them in the Q&A section. And without, because we are running a bit short of time, so I will just quickly introduce my next speaker. So our next speaker is Mr. Ian Littlefield, who is the driver training manager at Siva Fast Fire and Safety Training LLC. Ian has 25 years of experience in the world of driver training and development in the UK and across the Middle East. And today Ian will talk about how a company can achieve better results by combining new technologies with traditional driver training practices. So Floor is yours, Ian, if you can kindly share your screen. And I would appreciate if we can manage the time. Thank you so much for your support in advance. If you can kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully everybody can hear me and can see the screen.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, we can.
Okay, let's just get this. Okay, thank you very much, Said, for the introduction, and to Dr. Sangeeta for inviting us to take part in this webinar. Also, thanks to Road Safety UAE, the RTA and TriStar for their support of road safety over many years. I've known Thomas for quite a long time. I've worked with TriStar, and we currently work quite closely with the RTA in various different areas. It's been very interesting, actually, that we're all talking about very similar things, but we're looking at it from different angles. So far we've seen in-vehicle systems from the point of view of the user, from the point of view of the supplier, and now from the point of view of the vehicle manufacturer. What we're going to look at is how this can be combined with systems that analyse the behaviour of the driver. So let's move on without further ado. So yeah, as most of us know, driving is actually the most dangerous work activity that most people do, and it contributes to far more accidental deaths and serious injuries than all other work-related activities combined. In fact, in the MENA region, road accidents are the biggest cause of death, bar nothing else, for those in the 15 to 29 age group. So anything that we can do to reduce this death toll and to manage the risk effectively has obviously got to be something that we should all be focused on as companies. SafeFast are not just a road safety company. We are involved in all aspects of safety. So we cover fire safety, first aid, medical courses, elective health and safety like IELTS and NEBOSH. So we see the fallout from driver training incidents and driving incidents from the other aspects of our work. And the reality is that very few organisations can actually operate without using the road. So millions of vehicles, lorries, vans, taxis, buses, emergency services, are on the road being used for work every day, and the workers and the people around them face risks. Now, the actual fact is that 95% of crashes result from human behaviour. It's us that causes them. It's not the vehicle, it's not the road conditions, it's not the weather, it's the way that we as human beings react to all of these things, and the way our motivations, our moods, our feelings, our understanding of risk reflects in how we drive. Now, around a quarter of all road traffic incidents globally may involve someone who's driving for work at the time, and around 70% of those killed in those work-related journeys are actually not the drivers. They are the passengers, the pedestrians, the riders. So there is a huge ripple effect spreading out from any at-work accident. It's also estimated that around 65% of all company vehicles will be involved in some kind of accident in any one year. Now, this might not be a major incident, it could be a minor bump, but all of this adds up to a toll on vehicles, on infrastructure, on the environment, on society, that is something that needs to be addressed. Now, the traditional solution to this has been to deliver defensive driving courses and to fit various different in-vehicle monitoring systems, which are getting more and more sophisticated. But these things have been around for a long time. Telematics and vehicle tracking from around the 1990s And defensive driving first made an appearance back in the 1930s. But actually pulling all of this together into a coherent approach to managing occupational road risk is much newer, and many companies still don't address this adequately, and in many cases don't address it at all. Now, the traditional methods, defensive driving, they do deal with important safety issues such as inappropriate speed, fatigue, distraction, drink and drug driving, but this tends to be very generic in nature and tends to be relatively skills-based in its focus. Similarly, traditional telematics systems provide useful fleet metrics, but focus on what the driver's done, recording potential safety critical events, and this leads to retrospective remedial action. Now, driver-based road risk management, which is what we aim to provide, looks at improving the safety of the people who drive as part of their work and reducing the number of incidents through scientifically validated technologies and training solutions that use a blended learning approach to address the root cause of crashes. Now, we can achieve this in various different ways, the first of which is to use psychometric assessment and online learning as a recruitment screening tool. So effectively, we screen out the higher risk drivers at the beginning of the process. They're never onboarded into the fleet. To profile existing drivers for behavioural risk, and then to train them to reduce that risk. Use driver-based telematic systems to monitor and reinforce training solutions. And in fact, William has actually already covered some of this in his presentation, which was very interesting. I'm going to look at some slightly different aspects, but there will be a similar theme. And finally, targeting practical training solutions. So this is where we go back to the defensive driver training and revisit it in a slightly different way to maximise its effectiveness and reduce driver downtime as much as possible. Something that Steve mentioned, what we have to do is be realistic with our training solutions in terms of how much time it takes to actually complete them and how much disruption this actually causes to the normal activities of the organisation. So traditional in-vehicle solutions, many companies have various different forms of onboard solutions, from scheduling to maintenance to tracking, to utilisation, trip audits, driver safety monitoring and fleet analytics. And these do help reduce vehicle and journey-based risks, but they account for only a small percentage of the total crash risk faced by the fleet. Driver-based solutions, starting with recruitment screening, are addressing the other side of this coin. So the in-vehicle solutions look at what the driver does. The driver-based solutions look at why they might do this. So psychometric assessment identifies driver behavioural risk, which allows for recruitment of low-risk drivers. Existing driver profiling identifies the behavioural factors that account for 95% of road crashes and allow these to be addressed directly. Training and development can reduce these identified risks by up to 50%. And then the analytics come back in again to complete the circle by showing whether the training and the identification is accurate, whether it's working, whether it's effective. So why this kind of solution? Well, firstly, we're going back to the fact that 95% of crashes are caused by human factors. And the profiler that we use is the only scientifically validated driver behaviour-based psychometric assessment currently available. And it's backed by extensive case studies and over 90 published papers. There's extensive data analytics, reporting options at the back end, and online training and targeted coaching solutions are then added to reduce crash risk and crash involvement. So the way it works. First, we identify the risk through psychometric assessment. We segregate the drivers into high, medium and low risk groups based on their assessment scores. And this creates individual and group risk profiles. Finally, tailored online learning, targeted coaching are used to address potentially at-risk driver behaviour and improve safety. The telematics then continues the process of behavioural modification, reinforcing knowledge and rewarding appropriate behaviour. So the obvious ROI from this, the first is the reduced number of crashes. Secondly, reduced death and injury on the road, reduced cost to business and society, reduced environmental impact, and obviously from that, improved company image. So how this works at the recruitment stage. After initial interviews and screening, what the company would do would be to use the psychometric profiler to identify behavioural risks in potential drivers. We would suggest that high-risk drivers at this point would be rejected, never taken into the fleet. Low-risk drivers can be onboarded in the normal way, and medium-risk drivers would be assigned online learning specific to the identified behavioural risks before they could begin the onboarding process. I'm just going to show you a short video that gives a bit more information in how this works. Oh. Oh, that keeps pausing.
And we can't hear the sound. So what we always suggest that if you have any link of this video, we will share it with the participants later.
So basically, as you can see there, there's a great deal of information that companies can drill down into to find out where the risks lie within their particular fleet. The overall profile will allow them to target more generic training, but target it quite specifically. And then for the individual drivers, their profiles can be used as the basis of further training. So implementing this psychometric testing and auto-assigned e-learning with targeted coaching has consistently demonstrated tangible benefits. It reduces the human, financial, legal, and environmental costs of work-related crashes. So ROIs that the platform has achieved, reductions in crashes of between 20 and 50%. As I say, this is backed by numerous case studies. Insurance cost reductions of around 15 to 30%, millions in savings, particularly with the indirect costs that are associated with incidents. So, for instance, reductions in fuel consumption, improved vehicle residual values, reduced vehicle downtime and repair costs, lower carbon footprint, improved corporate image, and reduced driver downtime. So the other side to this is correctly targeted in-vehicle monitoring systems. With the psychometric profiler, we understand where the behavioural risk is, which drivers are at risk and how, and we can start to target training at them with, for low-risk drivers, just generic rolling programs that are effectively constant reminders of what they should be doing on a daily basis. Now, these can either be delivered as toolbox talks, as online nudges, as rolling online programs, or as traditional in-class sessions. Then on top of that, for medium risk drivers and high risk drivers, auto-assigned e-learning for the specific risk areas. And then for high risk drivers, this would also result in tailored training. So abandoning the traditional defensive driver training module in terms of something that is specifically focused on the behavioural risk areas for that driver and can also be fed by the telematics and other system feedback. So we're producing a comprehensive, individually tailored program for each driver, which is actually quicker to deliver. And we still have, of course, all the traditional telematics features from these systems, vehicle tracking, geofencing, multiple reporting capabilities. So we can then, from the telematics, feed the training, from the training feed the telematics. An example of this would be where multiple high-risk calls for fatigue, for instance, are recorded in the psychometric profiling of the fleet, and it can then be fed into fitting fatigue monitoring systems for the vehicles, very much as Steve has done with SVS. It allows companies to spend their money on in-vehicle systems effectively by aiming them at particular behavioural problems that their drivers have. One of the other things that we can do from our in-vehicle systems, and William touched on this with geofencing, we can look at where the behavioural risks are happening, where the near-miss events happen, where the potential harm events happen, rather than the specific, what we would call red events. So we can look at what we might call amber events. These are your near-miss events. We can then create temporary or permanent geofences, which can issue warnings to drivers as they approach those areas. So even a driver who's never been in that particular area before will get a warning of a potential behavioural risk spot as they approach, say, a particularly sharp bend, a difficult roundabout, an awkward junction. So the way the system works all together, when you tie everything up, first we start with psychometric assessment to identify behavioural risk for the individual, for the group, and for the company as a whole. Then we create a fleet-wide risk profile with drivers divided into high, medium, and low risk. At stage 3, auto-assigned e-learning is delivered to drivers with high-risk elements to begin the mitigation process. This is followed for higher risk drivers with in-vehicle monitoring, with real-time and alerts and safety tips. I won't go into any detail here because I think William covered that really quite well in his presentation. And then finally, tailored on-road coaching for high-risk drivers aimed at reducing the behavioural risk, and e-learning targeted at the overall 5 highest risk areas for the fleet. Again, we can add at the back end things that make this interesting for the individual driver. And this driver engagement is one of the key things that makes these systems effective. The old style telematics systems, which produced alerts, which meant that you would be hauled into the manager's office and told off at a later date if something had gone wrong, were effective to an extent, but real-time feedback, journey's end feedback, and journey's end coaching on the areas that have been identified where you as a driver might be at risk, give the drivers a sense of ownership of the process. They're brought into it far more, they're engaged with it far more. And when you link this to awards and achievement schemes, in the case of our system, a global award scheme where you can compare yourself and your company's performance with not just your local competitors or your own groups and silos, but with everyone who uses the platform. It gives a chance for this to become almost a fun experience for the drivers who are involved. So at the back end of this, we get at-a-glance fleet monitoring. We can set KPIs for the traditional telematics functions. We can set it for the driver behavioural functions, and we can set it for the areas specifically identified by the psychometric profiling. We can look at hotspot analysis, and we can drill down to team, vehicle and user level for both psychometric and telematics functions. What this allows is to create real-time alerts and to-do lists with comprehensive reporting and analytics to support planning for the fleet going forward. The more traditional aspects are still there, with visibility to location, utilisation and location-based alerts, analysis of on-time performance, the utilisation of resources and any other parameters that the company wants to set. And these systems have APIs which allow data from other systems to be brought in and amalgamated to create an overall picture of the fleet. It gives us an immediate overview of the drivers and the vehicles for the current day, and then for the preceding week, month, year, or whatever period we choose to set. And it also gives us an immediate list of all vehicles within a particular area at a specific date and time, which helps us with incident reporting and analysis. So obviously I've been mindful of the time here, so I've rattled through this relatively quickly. If people have further questions, obviously they can leave them in the chat, or they can contact us separately at Safefast Drivermetrics, and we'll be happy to explain in great detail. But for the moment, just to sum up immediate benefits of this kind of system. So profiling drivers at the recruitment stage ensures that all new entrants to fleets are low risk. So we gradually clean the pool of drivers and create ourselves a low risk fleet. Profiling existing drivers creates the company-wide risk profile, which is essential for developing road risk management strategies. Driver-based telematics then monitor the effectiveness of initial training, and they reward good behaviours and continue a cycle of continual improvements. This means that companies can develop tailored individual and fleet-wide training interventions. They can maximise effectiveness, conserve resources, and reduce associated costs. And finally, we can use targeted in-vehicle training to address the actual risks posed by the drivers, thus reducing unnecessary downtime and expenditure. So that's the end of my presentation. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it, and hopefully you get something from it.
Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. And specifically, I think we learned a lot about driver-based telematics, and I think it's quite a vast topic. Definitely we can have, maybe we can plan a separate session on these things specifically related to drivers training. And unfortunately, the voice of your videos, the sound was not there. So if you please send us a link separately, and we will share with all the participants later.
Yes, it's actually only music. So the only thing you missed is music.
Okay, fine. That's fine. That's fine. Thank you so much. Thank you. So our final speaker of today is Mr. Shazeb Memon, who is the Global Head of TAS at Swavel Business. I hope Shazib I pronounced it well. So Shazib is a passionate about technology and for problem solving. And what we learned about Shazib as well, that in his free time he climbs mountains. So maybe after the webinar we can get some tips from him, how to climb K2 and Nanga Parbat and all those gigantic mountains we have in Pakistan. And like you, I'm also interested to know more about his company, his startup. I don't know much about Swavel earlier, and Thomas introduced us to Shazib. So let's know more about his company and what he does. Yes, Shazib, floor is yours. And one one comment before you start, Shazib, that since we are running short of time, so we may not be able to take a lot of questions. So if you post the questions and if the speakers, if they're specific to the speakers, they will answer to you on the spot. And if there are any questions remaining, then we will take them on board and we will reply to you offline. Thank you so much for your attention. Yes, Shazib.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Atif, for arranging this. Thank you so much to Dubai Chamber of Commerce, to Steve, William, Ian, Naveen, and everyone that's part of the panel. I think it's been very, very insightful hearing some of the industry leaders like you guys and learning from you all. Just a little bit about myself. I'm Shazib. I am the global head of TAS. TAS is a short form of Transport as a Service at Swavel. Just to tell you and kind of set the context a little before we jump in, I'd love to kind of divide this presentation into two pieces. So since Swavel is very new, I'd love to first take everyone here who's listening to me through what Swavel is in the first half. And then in the second half, we're going to spend some time on how is Swavel ensuring that road safety is at the core of the decision making and is at the core of every problem that we solve. Given the markets in which we really operate, both emerging markets and the markets in the region, safety is something that's a key and one of the most important value proposition that we have across all different businesses that we run. So I don't think it could have come in at a better time than this. To tell everyone a little about Swavel, so Swavel essentially is a 4-year-old startup, started out of Egypt, but we quickly expanded into 6 markets: Pakistan, Egypt, Kenya, UAE, Jordan, Saudi. We plan to expand into Europe and Latin America in the next 3 to 4 quarters. To tell you guys a little about what Swavel does. Swavel is a technology platform in the mass transit space where we aggregate demand on one side and supply on the other, and we put them together through technology. And it's majorly behind reimagining and rebuilding mass transit systems across different geographies and different economies. It started purely out of a passion of problem solving and so on and so forth, and especially a passion of safety, ensuring and making sure how do women, men, kids, university students, and so on and so forth, how can we kind of bridge this gap between transportation, between the expensive services, and kind of really rebuild a transportation platform that becomes a lot more sustainable. We have 3 businesses. One is retail, the other is intercity, and the third is TAS. Not all markets are the markets where we operate with all 3 businesses. The first 2 are B2C businesses, much like on-demand services where you book a seat through an app. It kind of diverts you in the right, it tells you the walk to station, you hop on to the nearest bus vehicle, your seat is pre-booked, you jump on it, it drops you off to the nearest drop-off location. All of this is dynamically routed. While the third one is TAS, Transport as a Service. In UAE, our primary model in which we have expanded is TAS. To tell you guys a little about TAS, TAS is an end-to-end transport solution for corporates, for schools, for transit agencies, and across the globe. And what essentially it does is it's a platform that kind of powers the existing transportation systems of, let's say, corporates that own, let's say, a massive number of vehicles, or even don't own a certain number of vehicles, who also require, let's say, to a certain point, might also require vehicles together with technology. So what we essentially do is we kind of go, and especially also to the transit agencies, where we kind of power them in terms of mobility such that they are able to optimize on costs, increase their revenues, make their existing transportation system a lot more data driven, do an insane network planning that kind of optimizes for the top line and the bottom line. And above all of this, really put together the safety of captains, of customers, and everyone at heart while solving this problem. We've been blessed so far that we have been able to grow really fast. And what we are trying to do is, and everything that we've been able to get to, is by optimizing on a customer experience and optimizing on our captain experience, which again goes back to the big value proposition that we have, which is of safety, reliability, convenience, and affordability. I told you guys a little about Swvl. We started in 2017. We realized there are a lot of inefficiencies, moving inefficiencies, whether it's a developed market or whether it's a developing emerging markets. We realized there are a lot of inefficiencies into the mass transit system. And the day success for us essentially is the day when we are able to really power the countries, the cities, the corporates to build a mass transit system that is completely self-sustainable, and so on and so forth. Our journey started with Egypt, and then we quickly expanded to the other markets. Experience is something that really we double down on by using our technology, the machine learning algorithms, to kind of optimize for the routes, the network, and so on and so forth, and ensure that at all times the features, etc., that we are shipping are constantly delivering on safety, reliability, and convenience. This is just at a high level in terms of numbers. We do close to 3 million bookings a month now. We are already in 6 markets. By end of this year, we should be in close to 10 markets, and so on and so forth. Now, just kind of, there was a lot macro. Now, kind of just zooming in a little on Swvl business, because Swvl business, the corporates, the schools, the transit agencies, is actually the business that we have in UAE. So for the audience, I would like to kind of double down a little on what this Swvl business is and how it can help the platform that we've built. How is it helping a lot of the countries, corporates, and transit agencies across the world to kind of optimize their networks? The problems are pretty straightforward. There's unoptimized cost, there's poor fleet utilization, reconciliation is a mess, there are multiple calls, follow-up, there's substandard employer, student, or general public experience because everything is super fixed. Looking at all of these problems, actually, all the value propositions that came out for Swvl business are the ones that really address those problems. And I think the biggest and the most important problem here is the safety side of it, right? And the safety is multiple folds. The safety is for a corporate to ensure that the employees are safe, for Swvl to ensure that the captain is safe. And all of that is driven by data, driven by the amount of data that we collect and the kind of feedback mechanism that we have already in place from a customer and a captain perspective, that automatically at the end kind of puts in a certain corrective behavior that the best performing captains or the best performing drivers are always on the platform, while the worst performing ones are constantly moving out, such that every day and every moment we are constantly moving towards a much better world. Some of the other things that we also provide is the efficiency, of course, is the biggest name of the game. Reliability, which means the fulfillment is at 100%. The on-time arrival is at 90 to 95%. And all of this actually we've been able to drive it by technology. Just a quick one here on the kind of transportation costs that the corporates and the transit agencies can save through the network planning, optimized capacity, and so on and so forth. How does this all happen, right? Now, we spoke about a lot of those things. Just this slide kind of nicely summarizes the kind of proprietary technology that we have in terms of machine learning, the kind of Oracle, the route optimizer that we have that helps you really, with 3 buses, it's completely fine. When it goes from 3 to 3,000 buses, it becomes a big job to kind of keep operating it manually to a certain point. So how do you kind of bring it to under a certain umbrella, certain platform, such that you're constantly aware of how many hours is the captain on the road, whether the captain is following a certain speed limit, whether the captain is picking up all the right passengers, whether all the check-ins are in place, whether all the checkouts are done on time, and so on and so forth. On top of this, of course, there's a scheduled planner that kind of helps in terms of cost reduction and in terms of reducing travel time for a customer. And from the data that we have so far, we have realized that from an A/B testing perspective, we have seen about 8 to 10% reduction in travel times for employees, for people. And we know markets like ours, where traffic congestion is a problem, where availability of transport is a problem a lot of the times, where they're not enough. So if we would have a great metro or a great system, but there wouldn't be a much of a feeder system to those metros, which kind of ensure and enable eventually at the end of the day, there are less and less vehicles on the road. That kind of automatically gets to a point where the number of accidents, the safety points are kind of taken care of. So all of this essentially is something that comes under the platform that we have. Of course, at the end, it's a completely digitized experience, and I'll speak a little more in depth specifically on road safety and what are those things that we are doing to ensure that from a digital perspective, from a safety perspective, all of this is becoming is a big well-oiled engine. Just a slide on what the client gives us and how do we handle all of that. I think the big the big points here are that kind of are necessary for the purposes of this conversation are the real-time management dashboard that kind of gives you an all-time visibility on the captain, on the kilometers traveled, on where the captain is, where the customer is, and so on and so forth. There's live ride and employee tracking for the customers and for the employer, or for whosoever at the end, at the receiving end is. There's captain training. There's constant regular vehicle and captain checks. There's captain onboarding. There's captain retraining, and of course, there's a 24-hour support system as well to ensure that in case whatever we have put in, if anything goes and falls through the crack, there's always a dedicated support with the best of the SLAs that kind of takes people out of distress. I will just quickly get to and make it kind of start kind of closing this by looking at how is Swvl's model really making roads safer and a lot less congested. If you look at Swvl essentially is a startup that was built on the idea, on the obsession of a persona, which was a customer who wants to share a ride, which essentially at the end of the day, if you look at it, what we are trying to build, we are trying to reduce car ownership, car usage on ground in the cities by making sure that people really realize the value of mass transit and how mass transit is the future of the world. The pace at which the development moves in, there is going to be a point where there won't be enough roads for the cars that are planned to be out in the system. So how do you kind of move people to a world? So step one is, how do you, from the top of the funnel perspective, how do you ensure that the number of, if there are 7 cars on the road, instead of 7 cars, there are less number of cars and there are, let's say, more vehicles, more buses, etc. on the road. That's number one. The less the number of vehicles on the road, the less the number of accidents automatically that comes in. And then on top of it is, once people are in those vehicles, how do you ensure that you use the right telematics to monitor the behavior, to get to a point where the captains, the customers, and the whole ecosystem is completely safe. There was just a very nice, interesting fact that I wanted to put in front of everyone to kind of take a pause and look at it. There are countries that don't really invest. They end up actually losing somewhere between 7 to 22% of potential in their GDP. And this data is over a 24-year period. Now, this 7 to 22% is actually a massive number for the organizations or for the countries that do not really have road safety as a top priority. Just a few more statistics. Even though there was lockdown and so on and so forth, we still saw there was the levels from 2019 to 2020. There was a slight increase in congestion levels. These traffic jams, and as markets are opening up, this is expected to go much higher. As markets open up, of course, if we go back to the same way of business, same way of running, there are more traffic jams. These traffic jams cost billions in losses. There are death rates because of insane high death rates, actually, because of road accidents, which is why our reason to believe is that as long as the only way to kind of move out of this world where places become a lot more safer, transportation becomes a lot more accessible, is the public transport. Now, there are countries where we operate, for example, countries like Egypt, like Pakistan, where we operate, where we are the provider of that public transport. But countries like, let's say, Saudi, let's say UAE, and Emirates like Abu Dhabi, and so on and so forth, we see transit agencies as actually one of our biggest partners on how can we bring to the table whatever is the best in terms of technology that kind of helps plan the network in a way that at the end of the day, the revenues are increased, costs are optimized, and experience is 10x better than what it is. And how do we really partner from the TaaS and a SaaS perspective with some of these big transit agencies to ensure that there comes a point where spaces start becoming a lot more safer. How does Swivel's safer model works? I already briefly touched upon. Our core reason to believe is to have less number of cars on the road. So countries that really have a robust public transit system are the ones that really see not as many cars on the road. But by public robust transit system, meaning that the coverage area of a public transport system across a certain Emirates or a certain country or a certain city should be at least close to 60–70%. Now we know that it's not really possible to keep building and keep investing billions and billions on building the network and completely from scratch. So how do you really kind of bring in technology together with the transit systems, where historically the transit systems haven't really been technologically empowered? So how someone like Swivel can come on the same platform and kind of, let's say, become that first mile and the last mile transport technology provider that ensures that the utilization of, let's say, trams, of metros, etc., so on and so forth, kind of keep going high. Also, for example, how can Swivel, they keep going high, which essentially means that the cars go low, which essentially means that the cities start becoming a lot more safer. Also, from a night perspective, we know that utilization, it's an off-peak hour, the utilization is not really there. I don't see the reason to kind of run a very high seating capacity on low utilization buses. How can Swivel, companies like Swivel can come and partner again on this front to ensure that even if there are bigger vehicles on the road, how can you kind of keep squeezing even the size of the vehicle to ensure that the demand and the supply match is always there? Eventually should come to a point where public transportation should start making sense as a business. And we see a world where eventually Swivel and our win as an organization would be, if we make transportation accessible, if we make transportation safe, and if we make public transportation sustainable above all of this. And we see the kind of path at which we are. It doesn't seem like something that is too far-fetched, even at this moment. There's a demand responsive technology. Of course, at the end of the day, it kind of reduces vehicles, which again reduces accidents. Negligence is something that is one of the biggest reasons why there are a lot of accidents on the road generally. So if there is no lack of, if there is lack of proper maintenance, if there is lack of training, that's actually the biggest reason why a lot of the times you see non-compliance. And then of course, at a very high level, swivel safety and tech processes are the ones that really start working towards ensuring that the best of the best people are always on the platform, and the people who are not really getting to a certain threshold are automatically out of the system. I'll touch more upon in the last portion of this presentation on what are those 5 E's for us for road safety. And these 5 E's actually are, so step 1 is as swivel, education is very important, right? We have a complete onboarding training setup for drivers. We have a continuous recurring training setup. There's background checks and so on and so forth that ensures that the person who's really driving and getting into that seat that has a lot at stake is the one as the starting point of the picture is always recruited the right way. Then our second is our technology, our engineering. So how do you ensure that you build a technology, even as swivel does not really put in X number of vehicles that kind of keep adding to the chaos? How can swivel internally itself also optimize on the number of vehicles such that maximum number of people are transported from A to B, which eventually starts resulting into lesser cars on the road, which definitely starts resulting into lower accidents. So technology is a big piece of it. There are regular supplier and vehicle checks. There's swivel SOPs that we kind of put together. There's a real-time tracking system across multiple stakeholders and so on and so forth. In a world where, let's say, someone is not comfortable, if somebody just wants a complete bus that should only be catering to, let's say, women of a certain organization, all of those things are part of the system that kind of ensure that the vehicle and the route optimization is basis against all those checkpoints that come in from the end person and the end customer. And of course, enforcement of COVID compliance, driver checks. There's a constant feedback from commuters, which essentially works as a democratic way to ensure that the best of the best are rewarded and the worst of the worst are outside of the system. There's something that works the best across this industry. Then we have, of course, escalation protocols and so on and so forth. Our fourth one is actually emergency care. Now that you've done everything, but of course you cannot really be 100% sure on that everything at the end of the day is going to get to a certain point. So how do you really have the right emergency care and the right systems in place, that's in terms of insurance, in terms of in-app help 24/7, in terms of handling the emergency cases, in terms of ensuring that the backup vehicles, in a case a vehicle was not able to reach on point, there's a backup vehicle that constantly is on the move, and it ensures within a certain SLA. So these are some of the 4 out of 5 the E's that we have internally that we constantly optimize on while we make decisions. The fifth one essentially is empowerment. Empowerment is about giving that democratizing the technology and giving that end user the control to kind of ensure that they're able to make the right decision. Things like live tracking, things like sharing a tracker, things like ensuring that there's an SOS alert in place in case there's anything that goes wrong. They're able to constantly at the right moment monitor and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, Swivel's model, the biggest one is always about empowerment, to ensure to start building so many self-serve tools and products that eventually the system that we are building gets to a point where it becomes the safest and the platform of choice. These are some of the partner stories that we've had so far from countries like Egypt, Pakistan, Kenya. UAE is just a market that we are just starting out now, so we should be seeing a lot more from UAE hopefully next time. I would like to end this this on a commitment. Of course, as someone that's part of Swivel, and as Swivel, given how important it is for us to look into the traffic accidents, some of the commitments that we want to put in place and put ourselves on check and hold ourselves accountable to internally and to external stakeholders as well, is that by 2030 we want to be in a position where there's not more than one traffic accident per million kilometers that are driven. It's an ambitious target, and we see, given the rigor and the focus at which we operate, and the focus at which we keep safety at the core of this organization, given it's a higher capacity asset as well, this is not something that we see we can't deliver on. That's about myself, about Swivel, about safety, road safety. I've put in contact details of some of my colleagues here. If you guys are interested to know more, understand what we do, how can we help you, please feel free to reach out. And thanks once again to Thomas, to Atif, to everyone, to all the panelists for organizing such an amazing event. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Shahzad. Thank you so much. I think we have loads of information to digest. I think it's wonderful, and what you're doing and what your company is doing is really amazing. So thank you so much. And sorry, we are run short of time now. I would like to thank all my speakers who are still with us. William is there, Ian, Naveen, Shahzad, and Steve specifically. For your time, for your presentations. If any one of you like to say any concluding remarks, you're most welcome to say. If not, then we will conclude this webinar, as well as the questions which were asked by the participants were already answered in the Q&A section by the speakers. So thank you so much for that. And if you have any further question, you can always approach myself or my colleagues, like Dr. Sangeeta is there, Charles is also with us right now. So if you like to contact any one of us, you're most welcome to contact us, and we will connect you with these speakers. Anyone like to say anything from the speakers? Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks. Have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Rishi.